Hello, I'm Stephen Gay. Our capstone presentation is about reading across the curriculum, and I did the study at Walter Weber High School, classes I-576 at Jacksonville State University. Reading across the curriculum, so what is it? Okay, it's understanding reading content in all subject areas, math, science, English, social studies, etc. If we can get students to read better and understand literacy, they can improve in all subject areas. This involves speed, accuracy, and expressing themselves so they understand it. All right, here's some of the journal articles that we reviewed and did some research on to try to find some strategies. Santa Clara, Publico, Hall, Savy, and we're going to go over some of these right here, these specific things that we've researched in the slides later on. Here's some more right here. Here's a big one right here that we use in the 7th and 8th grade, self-regulated strategy development. And I'm going to go over these specifically here in a minute. All right, problem statement. So what caused us to try to find, to try to improve reading literacy? Well, we found that they had low ACT Aspire scores in English and reading, all right, in 2015 and 16. And they developed an RTI team to try to improve this, or reading teaching intervention. And they indicated that we needed to improve reading in all subject areas. So we said, we'll just have a reading across curriculum project. All right, here's the demographics at Walter Weber High School. 20% black, 74% economically disadvantaged, and they have a 22% minority rating. It's pretty standard for the area, so it's nothing extreme. The sample population, these are the samples that we used. One 3rd grade teacher, we want to start early. So if we can start getting them developed in reading early, as they progress into the grade levels, they will improve and they'll be ahead of the game. 5th grade, a 5th grade teacher had 100 students because they had changed classes so that she had more students in her class. And they incorporated some of these individual things. And like I said, I'm going to go over some of these strategies a little more in depth as we get on. And then 7th and 8th grade middle school, there was 200 students and 100 in each teacher. So they had a 200 student sample population that they use there. Like I said, I'm going to go over some of these strategies on later slides specifically. The methodology, well, obviously we want to research. We did some research on how to improve some teaching strategies, some ways to incorporate these things in the classroom. We want to implement them. We want to put them into the 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then later on, we want to assess them. Okay, we'll assess them monthly, weekly, and then yearly when they do their standardized test. We're looking for the assessment. We're looking for a higher percentage. One of the things we're looking for, we want a higher percentage of students at the level of ready or exceeding on Scantron's performance series. Now, they're taking Scantron performance series test in the year now. They're no longer taking the ACT Aspire test. So it's going to be hard to kind of put together improvement, but to find a way to do it. So like I said, they're no longer taking ACT Aspire. They've changed to the Scantron performance series test. And also what we want to look for is a mastering of standard. They want to see if students are mastering standards better because of their reading better in these 4 subject areas. All right, so data. We collected some data, and these are, like I said, this goes back to the problem statement. 22% of the 7th grade scored a level of ready and reading. And then 43% of the 8th grade, so it's a little better. So these are the things that concern that make us to improve reading across the curriculum right here. All right, so some of the teaching strategies that they put in. All right, readers theory. This is the elementary, middle school level. These are elementary things right here. Readers theater. All right, where they read oral scripts. They basically, you put them reading a play so they understand they kind of put in a real life situation what they're reading. Exercise. They say doing exercise improves brain function. So incorporating either 5 to 10 minutes. We found later on that 10 minutes was a lot for younger kids, so more like 5 minutes of exercise to improve brain function, and it kind of it helps them read better. And then some of the things you implement during class is classical music, helps them relax, lowers their blood pressure, keeps them focused. And then these semantic word maps here, I'm going to go over this here in a second. Semantic word maps and word scavenger hunts. This is an example of a semantic word map. You take a word and then a major idea, and then you take specific things about that word. So they understand what the word means. And then a scavenger hunt, you take a word and you say, okay, find something tiny in the classroom, find something interesting in the classroom, find something old in the classroom, may get you in trouble. Something unique. So this helps them kind of put into place what they're reading, okay? Understanding these words. All right, so in the 7th and 8th grade, this is a highly developed strategy here. This is called self-regulated strategy development. Your teacher's gonna basically, they're gonna take literature or take terms on literature, and they're gonna develop background knowledge. They're gonna discuss the strategy, model the strategy, memorize it, support it, independent practice. Okay, so they're gonna do these steps right here, and it's gonna help them improve understanding what they're reading. And it's also gonna help narrative and persuasive writing. So this is it's a high level writing strategies that they're putting in 7th, 8th grade. And these are the authors this is the research where we found this right here. All right, so moving on into 2000 and 2019, the data that we collected afterwards, we found that all the scores from fall, in 3rd grade all the way through 8th grade, all the scores from fall to spring improved. So we improved in all grade levels from fall to spring. Okay, now having said that, okay, the school that we did our research on still scored in a low quartile. So they put these scores in the quartiles or levels of achievement compared to the rest of the United States. So they still scored in a low quartile, and even the 8th grade. 8th grade really took a dip into the below quartile. So they scored in all levels in low quartiles. And we'll get into some more of that here in a second. Scantron performance level right here. Okay, 2017 to 2018 scores. We saw an increase of 2% right here in the 7th grade. In the 8th grade, something happened. I think maybe they weren't used to taking the test, but it went all the way down to 16%. So their scores really dropped in the 8th grade. Like I said, this doesn't do very good justice for our research that we put in, but this is what we got. So we'll have to move forward from there. And like I said, this is the 7th grade moving up right here. They're gradually moving up 2%, and then the 8th grade hit the bottom. And these are the individual test scores, by the way. This isn't cumulative anymore. These are from the individual test scores. All right, so a summary right here, teacher assessment. We got good feedback from the teachers, okay? So even that the scores dropped, the teachers did come back with good feedback saying that the students were reading better, they understood what they were reading a little better. And the 7th grade actually improved, so we did get that. The 8th grade, however, did not. Like I said, this is something we're gonna have to look at to try to adjust what we're doing. And actually we have, moving forward, and something new we're doing here, a new program that I've done research on is Achieve 3000, okay? And this is basically, these are required literacy goals that students have to achieve weekly. So they have to read a certain number of informational text or non-informational text weekly. And this is something that we want to look at incorporating in the next few years. It's going to take a grant, but it's very effective right here, Achieve 3000. Stay on course. So we want to keep doing what we're doing. It's not going to happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. So we want to stay on course with what we're doing. May take 2 to 5 years, like I said, to start seeing a product of what we're putting in. Like I said, our RTI team, we meet and talk. We got positive feedback from other teachers about the program. So it is working. You just got to take time. And here are the references from reading across the curriculum. Standards mastered. Here's our standards that we mastered while doing the research here. All right, so the next one, our diversity plan. This is actually a different school. I made a diversity plan for Weaver High School, making all students matter. All right, so in our diversity plan, we want to find a way to give every student an opportunity to become successful. Okay, poor, rich, whatever, whatever the variable is, we want to give them an opportunity to learn. All right, and we found some data where we had an achievement gap between underprivileged and privileged students. So we want to modify, we want to change our instruction, change what we're doing to give them opportunities for success. And we want to consistently improve our standardized test scores. Obviously, we want those to go up because those are going to be your evidence of what we're doing right or wrong. So how are we going to do this? Well, first thing we got to do is make a committee. We're going to make a group of people who are going to they're going to focus on doing this right here. we're gonna do some research. So how can we reduce this achievement gap for diversity? All right, identify these gaps. What's making these students that are underprivileged not achieve well? Set some goals. What goals are we gonna have? And then we obviously wanna put the strategies in place. All right, students with low income, you had 350 students with free and reduced lunches and 193 that did not, which 64% free and reduced lunch. Not it. Okay, now here are the percentages we're looking at. This is the percentage of students that are underserved that are considered proficient at Weaver High School, 20.9%. And this is the percentage of students who are non-underserved. Okay, so these are the privileged, you could say, students that are proficient, 28%. And what we want to do, we want to shrink this gap right here. We want to shrink the gap of 7.6%. We want more students that are underprivileged proficient. We want a higher percentage here. Okay, and obviously we want the privileged students to have a percentage, but we want to close the gap between the two. That's not taken away from them, but we want this number to go up mostly, and it'll close this gap here. So we want to increase in both categories, obviously, but we want to reduce the gap between these two parties here. All right, continuous improvement. What are some things that we're going to do to improve the achievement gap? All right, we got professional development, mandatory in the summertime. So if your committee gets together, basically your committee is going to get the first professional. They're going to get the in-depth professional development. We're going to have a guest speaker. Kevlar speakers, they're very good with diversity and inclusion. So we're going to listen to some guest speakers. And we're going to have continuous professional development throughout the year with online instruction. So they're going to be taking tests online and reading articles and watching videos online for continuous and professional development. These are some examples: Learn Magazine, answer and do some case studies. And then collaborative group discussion. Okay, that's a big one right there. They need to get together and talk monthly about what they saw, what they liked, what they didn't like, what might work at Weaver High School, what will work. So what are some things we're going to do? How are we going to put this in place? We're going to identify the students with disadvantage. Which ones have it? Okay, what students need help individually? What can we do to motivate these students? All right. What are some stimuli that we can give them? What strategies can we put in for these students? Okay. What are some different teaching strategies that we can do to close this achievement gap? Okay. Do they need one-on-one help? Do they need to go in another room by themselves? Just anything we can do. How's the strategy going to improve the students' cognitive skills? Get them to understand what they're reading and writing. All right, so then we want to assess what we're talking about. Like I said, we'll have monthly meetings to talk about and assess. End of the year standardized testing. Are these students' test scores going up? So this is a way we can use some hard data on whether we're doing a good job or not. And then obviously, like I said, we've talked about this. Did the gap reduce? So when we look at test scores and we look at the achievement gap and what's considered students are considered proficient, did the gap reduce? Back to that chart between proficient students and between privileged and underprivileged students. That's what we need to check. That's our whole goal. And here are the standards that we mastered. Here are resources. Thank you.